Hey, it's Aaron from GameEnthus.com, and today I'm checking out a area control action selection game for 2 to 6 players called Kingdoms of the Deep. Wow, it's still there. Weird. Kingdoms of the Deep was designed by Ian Zang with illustrations from Katy Grierson, and it's being published by Galactic Raptor Games. Let's open this strangely now greenless box and find out what's inside. So these are the components that come in the box. Let me reiterate one more time that this is a prototype. So art and components are subject to change. Like I believe this tile here represents Atlantis. I believe the intention is to have a plastic piece represent Atlantis. I'm not sure whether a whale shark will continue to be the first player marker. Even if it does, it works. It's a whale shark, and yeah, it lives under the sea, and yeah, it does what a whale shark does. The sack here that sort of goes along with Atlantis, I'll explain it in a moment. And like I said before, the game is playable up to 6 players. All these small decks have exactly the same cards in them. The only difference is the animals. So you have a crab, you have a seahorse, a stingray, a narwhal, a sea turtle, and you have an octopus. But all the cards in them are exactly the same. And for each character, you're going to have a set of cubes for a key component, not on camera right now, for your player board, which I'll explain in a moment. And you're also going to have a set of cubes, one circular one, just what I guess that would not be a cube, would it? One circular one for the score board. If I can turn it around, which is here. And a set of cubes to use in the area control portion of the game. There's also an expansion, but I'm just going to kind of go over the base game. But hey, they're thinking of other things. So hey, and the expansion is tiles that are a mixture of the different environments within the sets of tiles. So interesting. And of course, you have cards for round achievements. You have stage 1s, stage 2s, which are green, and then stage 3. This will all make more sense in a moment. And of course, the tiles themselves. And then you have the end game objectives. So you have 1 and 2 player end game objectives. And you have 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6. And you have the shark tokens, because I mean, why would you not have shark tokens? I mean, when you can have shark tokens, we're gonna have shark tokens. I mean, you know, we live in a society. I'll show you how a 2-player game might go. So the game's gonna begin. You're gonna place Atlantis in the center, and you're gonna surround Atlantis with tiles that are not capital tiles. Any tile that has the ring going around it is a capital tile. So you're gonna save those for the outer ring. In addition to being an area control game, Kingdoms of the Deep is also an action selection game. So as I mentioned, each creature having their own decks that are comprised of the exact same abilities, which would be move, which means you can move any of these smaller cubes, which are eventually going to end up out here in, I guess, the ocean. You can move, but not only yours, you can move anybody's cubes. So you can move anything that's out there, any cube that's out there. And each card has a solo ability. That is not referred to a solo mode, although it might. But what it really means is since this is an action selection game, everybody's going to choose an action, flip it over, and then reveal at the same time. And the starting player with the whale shark or whatever their first player marker happens to be at that point. And if you're the only person to pick that move, you get something additional. So if you're the only player to pick move for that turn, it says you may move in 1 additional cube. So you get like a little bonus for being the only player to have selected a particular action. So move lets you move any of the small cubes. If you move cubes, your opponent's cubes, probably. Every cube you move into Atlantis goes into the black bag. And if you move every cube you move into Atlantis, you immediately score a point for on the track. There's a trade-off though, because at the end of the game, the player that has the most of their creatures in Atlantis, meaning the bag, because they're out of the game. Once they go into Atlantis, they're in the bag, they're out of the game. You get eaten by the shark, you get the cube back. Not Atlantis though. Atlantis, they're in the bag. You get a point for every cube you put into Atlantis, be it yours or someone else's. But at the end of the game, whoever has the most of their creatures in the bag, at least in a 2-player game, gets 7 points. And the second player would get 1 point for each creature they had in the bag. Deploy allows you to increase cubes in an area that you already have cubes on, or an area that's adjacent to where you already have cubes. So if I had cubes here and here, if I deploy, I can add more cubes either to one of these hexagons or anything that they are adjacent to. That's deploy. Upgrade, let's zoom in over here. Upgrade is going to get into your actual mat here. So when the game begins, it's be a good time to place these out here. So when the game begins, you're going to have all of the base level abilities, meaning when you move, you're able to move 1 because you start off with your cube all the way to the left. When you deploy, you're able to deploy 2 cubes. I'll explain bolster. I'll explain shark in a moment. But you're going to end up with the base level ability. Everybody has that from the beginning. So when you upgrade, it's going to allow you to move the cubes to the right, which will augment your ability. So if you upgrade move, you'd go from being able to move 1 cube to 2. And then if you notice, it says 2 again. What that means is the perk here is once you move it to the 3rd spot, you get to move right then as an action because it has the move logo on it. You also, but then you're still at 2. It's not till you get all the way over to the far right that you're able to move 3 cubes at a time. That's how upgrades work. Shark. So your default shark lets you take 2 actions. So when the game begins, there is 1 shark in the center. And if you can see on the scoreboard here, where these logos are, these are scoring rounds. I'll get into what that is in a second, but above it, it says plus a shark for these 2. So the game starts off with 1 shark here, but as the game goes on, there can be a total of 3 sharks, but it will begin with 1. So the shark allows you to take the shark icon, or however many there are, and everything you do is an action. So moving the shark is an action. Eating something is an action. So let's say I was a purple player and I took the shark action. I could move this icon into this space here. And if I only had 2 actions, moving is 1. I could eat as another one. Eating would mean I would remove this player's cube from this space and put it back in their supply. That's 2 actions. I moved and I ate. So that is a shark action. And their solo is you gain 1 additional action. So you could move again or eat again. So whatever, you could do 1 of them again. If you notice down here, you have what's called the bait pile. And you have a line with different actions and upgrades on them. Every time you take a shark eating action, you would move this cube up. So any ability that you land on or pass, you would get. So at the beginning, you're on the blank space. And the first time you take an eating action, you can eat your own cubes too if you want to. You would put the cube over the deploy. And then 2 more after that is a move. 2 more after that is a bolster. You're not upgrading these. These are letting you take those actions because you moved along this track. However, when you get to the upgrade logo here, you could upgrade and so on and so forth. So the bait pile works with eating, not moving shark actions. Every time you eat, every cube you eat, that's how many spaces you move. And you could, I mean, if you play it right, you could get, I mean, I have yet to get all the way to the end, but did a whole lot of eating. You could really upgrade a lot and get a lot of actions along the way. You'd also, at the end of the game, you would score every bait pile space that you've moved, you get 1 point for that as well. So that's end game scoring. Bolster allows you to add additional cubes to a space that you already have a specialty terrain hex in. So let me get into what that is. So the specialty terrain hex is when the game begins, these are all the different terrains. There's 6 of them. You are going to pick one. So let's say I picked this one. It's the most colorful one. I kind of always tend to pick it. I don't know. It's very colorful. I mean, it's, you know, I'm only human. So let's say I picked that one and then purple picked that one. So when the game begins, we would just add 1 cube to our specialty spaces. So the narwhal player would add 1 black cube to their specialty places, and the octopus would do the same. So their specialty place is this here, which matches this, and that. They would just add 1 cube. So they would start off with some measure of control in a particular area. So to bolster, if you play the bolster card, that means you would be adding however many your upgrade allows you to. By default, it's going to be 3. And it can get all the way up to 6. So bolstering, at least at the beginning, would mean you could add 3 more cubes split between any of your specialty terrain. So for the narwhal, because this is my specialty terrain, I could add a second one here, here, and here. That's 3. I could add all 3 here. Whatever I want to do, I could do that. It's just I'm adding 3 divided amongst, if I want to, all the areas that are my terrain focus. And reset. So when you play these cards, they're going to stay down in front of you. So your hand is going to get smaller. You start off with 6. What reset does is reset allows you to pick up the rest. Reset allows you to pick up all of your cards, and then you have all your options for the subsequent turn after you played reset. So reset is basically saying, if I played all my cards, oh, well, if I only had 1 left, I'm going to play reset, and then I would get all my cards back. And now I have all the options between shark, upgrade, bolster, move, and deploy. However, when you do reset, you take this star marker here, and every time somebody resets, it gets closer and closer to the scoring rounds, which also gets closer and closer to the end of the game, because once you get out here, that's the last round. So, and then these are scoring rounds. I'll talk about that in just a moment. So reset lets you pick up all your cards again. It also does something else. When you upgrade reset, if you notice, there's no arrow going like this one from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Reset just basically shows 4 of the other abilities that you're able to do. So when the game begins, you can pick which one you want to do by default. So let's say at the beginning of the game, I want to be able to deploy. So once I play the reset card, I take the action that the cube is above. So I reset, I get all my cards back, and I can take the action that I picked at the beginning of the game. So I picked deploy. When you upgrade reset, so basically going to take, well, 1 cube is going to remain there to pick a second turn. I'll get to that in a second. So 3 other cubes are going to kind of hang out here next to reset, because when you upgrade reset, you're not moving a cube, you're adding a cube. So it means when you play your reset card, you get the rest of your cards back, and you get to do the abilities that you picked. So I would reset, get my cards back, and if I upgraded, I get to do whatever cube has a block on it, which means I could do shark, I could bolster, I could move, I could deploy. So that's pretty cool. So reset can become pretty powerful if you upgrade it to a point where you could do the 4 other activities. You can do the 4 other things. Pretty powerful. That's what all the different cards do. And I mentioned the terrain focus, where you start off by picking 1 terrain that no one else has to begin. Meaning that's when you bolster, you're going to bolster to those spaces. Deploying is different. Deploying can be where you are and what's adjacent to you. But terrain focus is where you're going to bolster. So if you look here, you notice there's a 2 in the 3rd spot under bolster. That lets you pick a second terrain focus area. So you take another cube and you put it down. So now you have 2 different terrain focus areas, which means you'd have basically 6 spaces out here that you can bolster to, 6 spaces out here that you can deploy to, meaning you can put more things on it, meaning you can put more cubes on that, or put them on the spaces that they're adjacent to. That's how the game goes. What you're trying to do is you're really trying to get the area majority in the capital spaces, the ones with the rings. If you get to a scoring round and you have more of your cubes in any individual capital tile, you'll score 2 points. If you happen to have the majority of cubes in all of the capital tiles, you would win instantly. No one has let me off that easy, so I tried, and the kids were like, "No, Dad." And then they exacted their vengeance and left me. Wriggle like a worm on a hook. Not quite, but you get the idea. And then there's also gold cards. So I'll just give you an example. There's also beginner and advanced sides to all the gold cards. So anything with a lightning bolt next to it, like this one, means you do it immediately, not during a scoring round. It would just happen right then. So this one says, during a move action, move another player's creature into Atlantis, earn a point. So I interpret that as you already get a point for moving anybody's creature into Atlantis, but I feel like you get an additional point because of this card, moving your opponent's creatures into Atlantis. And then the other 2 goals here, you would score at the end of the round, meaning once you get here, gold card 1 would go away, and then you'd start gold card 2 up until you get here, and then gold card 3 would come out after this round throughout the end of the game. The second goal for part 1 would be the most creatures adjacent to Atlantis. So you have the most creatures here. If you have the most, you get 5 points. The second most, you get 3. After that, you get 0. And then the third one is have one action that's been upgraded twice. That would get you 2 points. So if you did 2 upgrades on one of your actions, you get 2 points. Nothing wrong with that. Like I said, this one is active until you get to the first scoring round where you would score this. Then the second one will become active until the next one, and then the third. So we'll kind of go like that. Show you what a couple turns might look like. Okay, so let's say the narwhal went first, and they want to, let's say they want to bolster. And then the octopus player is going to do an upgrade. So they both picked, and then they would reveal. And because the narwhal player is first, they would go first. So they're going to bolster, which means they're going to add 3 new units to one of the hexes with their terrain focus. Terrain focus is this really colorful coral reef. So they're gonna go there, and they bolstered. The octopus player is going to upgrade. What are they going to upgrade? Now, one reason they're upgrading is because if you look down here, one of the goals for until you get to the next scoring round is one action that's been upgraded twice. So they're definitely incentivized to do that. And you're not supposed to show what the other ones are because you want people to work on them or be knowledgeable of them going into that series of rounds. I also should bolster again because I should get the solo ability, which means you may place 1 additional cube on your current specialty hex terrain because I was the only player to pick bolster. So I'm going to really bolster that one. So now on to the octopus upgrade. Because I'm the only person who played octopus, it says you may upgrade an action 1 additional time. So I get to upgrade something twice, which is kind of nice. So let's say I'm going to upgrade bolster up to 5. And if you look on the 5, it has a 2. That also means I get to pick another terrain focus. I'm not sure if that means that at that point I would add cubes to it like you do in the beginning, but I kind of feel like, why wouldn't you? So hopefully I'm not wrong. Something should pop up on screen if I am. but this wetlands kind of thing is my new terrain focus. So 1, 2, and then 3. So I got to take the action. I feel like I got to take the action because I picked a second terrain focus, and I also met the requirement for one of the goals here on this card, because I bolstered. The bolster upgraded twice because I played it by itself. And let's say, okay, and then black player is going to pick that. Purple player is going to pick that. And then we would reveal. Okay. Now, I do feel like the player marker, I guess, should change. So, I hope. So now the octopus player is going to deploy, which means they're going to add more creatures to places that are either their terrain focus or adjacent to them. So, and remember, you want to have the area majority on the capital spaces. So I'm going to add one there, and then add one there. And now the narwhal player picked the shark, and when you start off, you have 2 shark actions. So I guess had I had my druthers by me, I would have upgraded the shark, so I could have got more actions, which meant I could have moved twice, 1, 2, and then started eating these here. But mistakes were made. So they have 2 actions, so they are going to move and then eat one of the octopus players' things, which also means that their bait pile, they get to move up on their bait pile because they took an eat action. So I'm moving on to the space that says deploy. So that means now I get to deploy. And my deploy is at 2. So I get to place 2 of my cubes on one of my terrain focuses or place adjacent to them. And it would behoove me to add it here. So now I can sort of battle it out in this area here, because now we're tied up for this area. I mean, clearly they have the majority here, and then there's none. Oh, well, they have one. Then I have this one over here. So this one is now contested because now they have 2 and I have 2. And that is how the game will go. You're picking up the cards. You know the 6 things you can do, but what's kind of cool is you can do more based on moving on your bait pile. You can do more based on being the only player to play that ability card, enacting the solo ability, letting you get a little bit extra. So you gotta be strategic about it. So as you see your opponent's hand getting smaller and smaller, it's getting smaller because they haven't played reset, which means the reset is probably coming up. So maybe you want to upgrade your move and maybe upgrade your deploy so you can start putting out more of your units in the contested areas. So I might want to make sure this gets bolstered so I can win. Make sure I can move some folks from here into here so I can try to win it. And of course, the octopus player will be doing the exact same things. You're going to be battling it out in different areas all over the ocean and hoping that before 2 resets happen, before the marker moves to here, that you can make some moves and try to earn some points. So majorities are only counted in capital spaces when you get to these areas. Of course, at the end of the game, it's going to be calculated there. And that is a really kind of brief overview of how Kingdoms of the Deep plays. I like that there's 6 things you can do, and then as you keep playing, those 6 things do get fewer and fewer. But if you're using the shark, you can get more options here. If you're playing cards that no one else is going to play, you can get boosts. So you can try to catch up and also put yourself in a position to get some of these too. And I think for the most part, ties are friendly in this game. it can be a little thinky about trying to anticipate what your opponent is going to do, but that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of figuring out, well, I need to move, like, regardless of what else is going on, I know I need to at least attempt to get to all of these. Let me also point out that maybe having them all right here might not have been the best move when I laid these out. We space out the capital tiles. But anyway, but that's the beauty of it. Like, you know, you're going to want to position yourself to get those scoring round points. And you know, you're going to want to also try to position yourself to get some of these as well. You know, I mean, even if you're not the first player to get 5 points, maybe you get 3. But also, if you've been doing that, you also put yourself in a position, maybe you can move some of your opponents into Atlantis. Maybe you pick, like, maybe if you have, you work your way up to a move 3 upgrade here or here, even if you're not going to get the 5 points, maybe you put one of each of your opponents' cubes in Atlantis. So now they're all in the bag, but there's one of them in the bag, but you got 4 points. So a lot of different things you can think of. Once I explained everything, and once we started putting the cards out, and then the kids started to see what you could and couldn't do, it clicked with them, and we were off. And we were having fun playing the game, you know, fighting it out in some of these spaces to try to make sure we had the majority. There were some times where I kind of had to re-explain deploying bolster, but they got it. Like, bolster is, you're adding more to what your focus is, whereas deploy could be that, or could be elsewhere, which once they realize that, oh, hey, I'm next to a capital tile, I can keep dumping stuff there too. So yeah, they figured that out, and yeah, made me look bad, but I'm used to that. So it gives you a chance to kind of pick, like, am I going to go for the 2 points for having majorities and the capital tiles? Am I going to start trying to put an equal number of different people's cubes in Atlantis to earn points? Am I going to use the shark just to get them off the board entirely? You know, the options are there to sort of balance things out and figure out what you want to do. As odd as it sounds, there's a straightforward depth in Kingdoms of the Deep that's very appealing and likely tough to pull off. Kingdoms of the Deep from Ian Zang, published by Galactic Raptor Games, is up on Kickstarter now. There's a link in the description. If you think what I described sounds fun, I suggest you go to Kickstarter and support it. I'm Aaron from GameEnthus.com. It's going to do it for me. Take care, wear a mask, consider others, stay safe, be blessed.